Not every Harley is buy once, ride forever. 7 specific models carry documented, expensive, recurring defects that have turned dream bikes into garage-bound money pits for thousands of owners. These are not freak failures or bad luck one-offs. One of these machines literally shreds its own engine from the inside out, from corporate mismanagement eras to engineering shortcuts that were never fully corrected. This countdown breaks down exactly which used Harleys are most likely to punish your wallet, and why. We will also point you toward the safer eras actually worth buying into. Let's get into it, starting with number 7. Number 7. The early twin-cam 88 and 96 engines built from 1999 to 2006 are notorious for a cam chain tensioner design that can quietly destroy the entire motor. The problem sits inside the cam chest. Harley-Davidson used a spring-loaded plastic shoe to keep tension on the cam chain. Over time, heat and friction wear down the shoe, sometimes as early as 14,000 miles, but often by 30,000 to 50,000 miles. When the plastic thins or cracks, fragments break off and get swept into the oil pump. That debris clogs the pump's gear teeth, starving the cam bearings and lifters of oil. The first sign is usually a drop in oil pressure or a soft throttle response, but many engines run normally until the bearing seize or the camshaft twists under load. At that point, a full cam case rebuild or even a new engine is often required. Harley-Davidson never issued a formal recall for this defect, but internal service bulletins instructed dealers to inspect and replace the tensioner shoes. The official fix is a hydraulic cam chain tensioner kit, which self-adjusts and uses improved pads, but installation runs $1,200 to $2,000 with labor. Aftermarket gear drive, cam kits, which eliminate the chain and tensioner altogether, cost even more, but provide a permanent solution. Buyers considering a Dyna, Softail, or Touring model from 1999 to 2006 should demand proof of a hydraulic tensioner or a gear drive conversion, otherwise factor a major repair into the purchase price. The issue was finally resolved for the Dyna in 2006, and for all other big twins from 2007 onward, when hydraulic tensioners became standard. For anyone eyeing a used twin cam from this era, the cam chest is a loaded gun. Subscribe for more straight facts before you buy. Number 6. The AMF era Harley-Davidsons built between 1969 and 1981 represent a low point in the company's manufacturing history. After American Machine and Foundry took control, the focus shifted from craftsmanship to volume. Assembly shortcuts became common on the factory floor. Riders from the period recall loose fasteners, chronic oil leaks, and a level of vibration that could rattle parts loose within a few thousand miles. Shovelhead engines produced in those years became infamous for leaking gaskets, cracked aluminum heads, and charging system failures. The 1970s Super Glide, for example, was often delivered with misaligned drive chains and stator problems that left riders stranded. A recall in the mid-70s targeted nearly 90,000 bikes for an oil ejection defect that could spray the rear tire, raising the risk of a crash. Warranty claims soared, and dealers struggled to keep up with repairs. As Japanese competitors raised the bar for reliability, Harley's market share eroded, and the brand's reputation took a major hit. The financial strain peaked in 1981, prompting a management buyout by 13 senior executives who promised to restore quality control. Post-buyout changes included stricter torque procedures, improved oil seals, and a new alternator system to replace the weak generator setup. Even so, the damage was done. AMF-era bikes still require extensive sorting before they can be trusted for daily use, and most mechanics recommend budgeting for a full teardown and rebuild if you're considering a shovelhead or ironhead from this period. The AMF years remain a cautionary tale. A used Harley from 1969 to 1981 is a gamble, unless there's proof of careful restoration. Subscribe for more straight facts before you buy.
Look, after spending most of my life with my hands inside Harley engines, I pulled together everything I learned into one single reference for the guys who actually wrench on their own bikes. Diagnostic shortcuts that let you read ECM codes without a professional scanner. A torque chart organized by job instead of by model so you stop flipping through hundreds of pages. Dozens of repairs that dealers charge a fortune for and you can knock out in your garage for a fraction of the price. Tool substitutions that save you hundreds on specialty gear you would only use once. The kind of stuff you will not find in the official manual or buried in some forum thread. It is called the Harley Mechanics Vault. Just point your phone camera at the QR code on the screen right now or grab the link in the description.
Number 5. The Ironhead Sportster, built from 1957 to 1985, remains one of the most temperamental Harleys a rider can buy used. The Ironhead's roots go back to the original XL series, but by the 1970s the design was showing its limitations. The engine uses a cast iron cylinder head mated to an iron barrel, which traps heat and makes the bike prone to warping and head gasket failure. Owners often report hard starting, especially in cold weather, thanks to a kickstart system that can punish the unprepared, and a primitive ignition setup that is vulnerable to moisture and vibration. Electrical gremlins are common, with the old generator-based charging system failing to keep up with modern battery demands. Oil leaks are almost a given, as the crankcase breather design can push oil out of the vent line, especially if the bike is overfilled or the check valve sticks. The 4-speed transmission is notorious for false neutrals and missed shifts, while the clutch requires frequent adjustment to avoid slipping or dragging. On the road, the Ironhead's vibration is severe enough to loosen fasteners and crack brackets, forcing owners to check hardware after almost every ride. Parts availability is a mixed bag. While some components are still reproduced, many original items, especially electrical parts, can be difficult to source or expensive to replace. Most mechanics agree that buying an Ironhead is a commitment to constant tinkering. Unless the bike has been fully rebuilt with modern upgrades, electronic ignition, alternator conversion, and fresh seals, expect regular downtime and repair bills that can quickly outstrip the initial purchase price. The Evolution Sportster, introduced in 1986, solved many of these issues with aluminum heads, improved gaskets, and a more reliable charging system. For riders considering an Ironhead, the warning is clear: nostalgia comes with a steep mechanical tax. Subscribe for more straight facts before you buy. Number 4. The Shovelhead engine, produced from 1966 to 1984, represents a classic Harley design that became a maintenance nightmare during its middle years. Early Shovelheads, built before the AMF acquisition in 1969, had a reputation for solid performance and were known for their aluminum heads and increased displacement over the panhead. But once American Machine and Foundry took over, cost-cutting and production shortcuts changed everything. Models built between 1969 and 1981 suffered from chronic oil leaks, loose fasteners, and vibration severe enough to back out bolts or crack brackets. The aluminum heads were prone to warping and cracking, especially under the heat cycles of daily use. Charging system failures became routine, with the original generator setup often unable to keep batteries charged, leaving riders stranded. The 1970s Super Glide and Electra Glide were particularly notorious for leaking gaskets, misaligned drive chains, and stator problems that could kill the ignition system without warning. In 1975, a recall targeted nearly 90,000 bikes for an oil ejection defect that could spray the rear tire, raising the risk of a crash. Warranty claims spiked, and many dealers struggled to keep up with repairs. The financial pressure on Harley-Davidson climbed until 1981, when a management buyout marked a turning point. New leadership invested in better torque procedures, improved gasket materials, and swapped out the weak generator for a more reliable alternator system. These changes helped, but the legacy of the AMF-era Shovelhead stuck. Even today, buying a used shovelhead from this period means budgeting for a full teardown and rebuild. Most mechanics advise replacing gaskets, checking every fastener, and upgrading the charging system before trusting the bike for regular use. For riders drawn to the shovelhead's classic look and sound, the reality is clear. The AMF years demand deep pockets and a willingness to wrench. Subscribe for more straight facts before you buy. Number 3. The early Evolution-powered Sportsters built from 1986 through the mid-1990s are often overlooked in Harley's reliability conversation, but they carry a set of headaches that catch many used bike buyers off guard. The Evolution engine itself was a major step forward from the Ironhead, with aluminum heads and improved gaskets that cut down on oil leaks and warping. But the early Evo Sportsters, especially those from 1986 to about 1993, came saddled with design compromises and parts quality that create a steady drip of repair bills for owners today. The electrical system is a primary culprit. Regulator and stator failures are common, leaving riders with dead batteries or intermittent charging, sometimes as early as 20,000 miles. The 4-speed transmission carried over from the Ironhead is rough shifting and prone to false neutrals, and the clutch basket is known to develop notching, which leads to grabby engagement and premature wear. Oil leaks, while less frequent than on the Ironhead, still show up around the rocker boxes and primary case, thanks to gasket materials that were later upgraded in the mid-1990s. Carburetor tuning is another sticking point. These bikes shipped with lean jetting to meet emissions rules, which results in hot running and hard starts, especially in cooler weather. Suspension and brakes on these early Evos were basic at best, and many examples on the used market have worn-out shocks and spongy single-disc front brakes that never offered much stopping power to begin with. Parts availability is generally good, but labor costs can add up quickly when electrical or transmission work is needed. By the late 1990s, Harley addressed many of these issues with a 5-speed gearbox, better charging hardware, and improved seals. For anyone considering a used Evo Sportster from the first decade of production, the advice is simple. Check for a full service history, inspect the charging system, and budget for upgrades if the bike hasn't already been sorted. Subscribe for more straight facts before you buy. Number 2. The Harley-Davidson V-Rod, produced from 2002 to 2017, stands apart as the company's boldest technical experiment and one of its most expensive long-term gambles for used buyers. Designed in partnership with Porsche-engineering, the V-Rod's Revolution engine broke with nearly every Harley tradition, including liquid cooling, dual overhead cams, and a 9,000 RPM redline. On paper, this 60-degree V-twin made 115 horsepower and delivered smooth, rapid acceleration. But the complexity came at a cost. Routine maintenance on a V-Rod requires removing the airbox and fuel tank just to reach the spark plugs or to adjust the valves. The cam chain tensioner, a critical part of the double overhead cam setup, is buried deep in the engine and requires special tools and a careful hand to service. Valve clearance checks are recommended every 15,000 miles, but many owners skip them due to the labor involved, risking burned valves or cam wear. The fuel system, especially on early models, suffers from pump and regulator failures that can strand riders without warning, and the plastic fuel tank is known to warp or crack over time, especially if ethanol-blended fuel is used. Electrical issues crop up as well, with the instrument cluster prone to fogging and failure, and the starter relay susceptible to corrosion. Parts availability is another sticking point. Many V-Rod-specific components, from bodywork to engine sensors, are no longer in regular production, pushing prices up and repair timelines out. The unique 180-section rear tire and custom wheels also limit tire choices and raise replacement costs. While the V-Rod's performance and styling still attract a loyal following, buyers should factor in the high cost of specialized service and the shrinking pool of mechanics familiar with the Revolution engine. For those considering a used V-Rod, a full service history is non-negotiable, and budgeting for major repairs is a must. Subscribe for more straight facts before you buy. Number 1. The Milwaukee 8 engines built from 2017 to 2019 introduced a new set of headaches for Harley owners, this time centered around a critical oiling defect known as wet sumping. The problem traces back to the stock oil pump, which struggled to scavenge oil from the crankcase during sustained highway speeds or heavy throttle. When the pump could not keep up, oil pooled in the bottom end instead of circulating back to the tank. The result was a dangerous drop in oil pressure, increased internal drag, and in worst cases, catastrophic engine damage. Riders often first noticed a loss of power, excessive heat, or a warning light after a long ride. But the real damage happened out of sight. Crank bearings starved, piston skirts overheated, and cam lobes wore prematurely. Service bulletins from Harley-Davidson acknowledge the problem, advising technicians to check oil levels and in some cases update engine software to limit high RPM shutdowns. But the only permanent fix came in 2020, when a redesigned oil pump became standard on all Milwaukee 8 models. Before that, owners were left to foot the bill for aftermarket pump kits, which could cost $700 to $2,700 depending on the parts and labor involved. These upgraded pumps increase scavenging capacity and restore proper oil flow, but installation requires a full cam chest teardown, an expensive procedure for any used bike buyer. The factory never issued a formal recall, so proof of an upgraded oil pump is essential when considering a 2017 to 2019 Milwaukee 8. Without it, the risk of engine failure remains, and the repair bill can quickly erase any savings from a used purchase. For anyone looking at these years, documentation of the oil pump upgrade is non-negotiable. Subscribe for more straight facts before you buy. Across all 7 entries, one fact holds: Harley's greatest liabilities emerge when design flaws go unresolved, whether it is AMF-era shortcuts, twin-cam chain failures before 2007, or early Milwaukee 8 oil issues. Used buyers today still pay for past engineering missteps, not the brand image. The lesson is clear: know the model year pitfalls, and you will avoid the money pit. For more no-nonsense breakdowns, subscribe for future expert reviews.